Live right now is the one and only Kimberly Dvorak. You spell that last name D-V-O-R-A-K. She is the award-winning national security and border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. And most of all, Kimberly is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. And she also pops up as a TV correspondent for CW6 News in San Diego, as well as One America News Network. Her website, thekdreport.com. Kimberly, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
All right. I have to turn you up maybe a little bit there. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I love this little note you sent me. Well, let's see. We're going to discuss Vice President Harris's visit to the mall. The border. I got to tell you, there's some serious stuff coming across there that you talk about, all the killings and disappearances and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I know when you want to get into Harris. Okay,
let's just start with her. Let's start with Harris, because then we can like look at all this other stuff that she's missing by going to the mall in El Paso, or actually the airplane hangar where she did a press conference in the airplane hangar in one of the safest parts of the state.
Well, I got the lowdown on it because I think she went a little bit further than the mall, because she actually went to the Border Patrol facility, which is actually miles from the actual border.
Yeah.
And they say El Paso's nowhere near the real crisis. And it says, and what was the point of this trip after all? Did she really intend on viewing the exploding crisis herself, as did, let's see, Republican Ted Cruz and many, many, many other Republicans months ago? Or, and here's the answer, the question for you, $1 million. No, never mind.
I'll take you up on that.
I know, yeah. I was talking about monopoly money, okay? Or was this just a pathetic attempt to save face from Donald Trump? What do you think, Kimberly?
Okay, well, obviously, when Trump announced he was going, the VP's office realized that she had to get down to the border, or at least kind of, sort of, near the border. And again, she did a press conference inside a hangar, not near the border. So, there are absolutely zero pictures of her being on the ground outside anywhere near the border, because they don't want those images to be used in campaign ads, as we are told from people working for the vice president. However, I would like to kind of bring this up, and maybe she was looking at supervising this one particular program that the Biden administration has actually implemented. They are taking migrants who say they cross the border and they end up in Southern California, San Diego, in that area. They round them up. They believe, the migrants believe that now we're in America, we're staying, but no, the Biden administration is flying them to places like El Paso and then pushing them across the international border into Juarez, which is the most dangerous city in the world, and continues to be the most dangerous city in the world, except for maybe Syria over the weekend. However, this is a program that leaves these migrants with no bearing as to where they are. A, violent city. B, C, they have nothing. They've left all of their belongings when they crossed across the border, so they're literally dropping them off with just the clothes and shoes on their back. That's it. No money, no nothing. You're going back to Mexico. This is the Biden administration that's doing this, folks. They are the ones that are doing this to these poor migrants. Along the way, they're encouraging them to make the trek up to the border. But when I learned about this program actually earlier this morning, I just, it's something I read and I was so completely angry about, because, obviously these people are leaving terrible situations. We all know that. And we all know that we would like to help them have a better life in their own countries. That's a great thing and a laudable goal for this country to do. But to take these migrants and take advantage of them, giving them the false hope that they made it and they leave everything behind, their belongings, nothing, money, they have no money, nothing, and then they fly them to another destination and ship them across the border. That to me is horrific.
Well, Kimberly, I'll tell you, coming up on this break here, and I did a little research too, and here she is, she went to the mall, I'm sure, and got herself some new high heels. But anyway, I said, I just checked and wanted to know how far was she from Fort Bliss. You know, that's where all those migrant children are.
The epicenter.
And it's very interesting how far Fort Bliss is from the dangerous city of Juarez. And she wasn't too far from Juarez. All she had to do was walk on water, so to speak. I used to live in El Paso. Anyway, Wilder, CRN, with Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible, we said responsible, foreign policy. So here is Kamalia, or Kamala, whichever you prefer, I don't care, down there, you know. And
tomato.
I'm sorry?
Tomato.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, when she was where she was actually only 9 miles, okay, from where migrant children who have been crossing the U.S.-Mexico border alone are still spending prolonged time in a temporary government facilities. And this is the largest processing center in the United States for unaccompanied migrant children. But she did visit a screening area for a Salem appliance.
Yeah.
Did
I
say appliance? I meant applicants. Yes, I'll be all right.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, it's, you know, when you think about the catastrophic human, you know, nature that's taking place, that, I mean, that, you know, people are at their unbelievably weakest point in life. They're fleeing their countries. They're trying to get to America. And they get here thinking that because the Biden administration is the Biden administration, welcome, come one, come all, we're going to get rid of Title 42, all of that stuff. But Kamala does not want to go to these places to see, you know how these children are being treated, and that, you know, they're, like, as you said, they're staying in it, you know, an extended period. They can't find them guardians in the country, so they're stuck and they can't leave these facilities, which are detention facilities, so like a juvenile hall type situation where these kids are forced to live in. Why wouldn't you want to go visit this so she could see, you know, oh my gosh, we need to reverse course here. We need to figure out what we can do here to stop this, because we don't want this to continue to grow. And since the administration is doing nothing, you have the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who is out there saying we're going to allot money to build the wall. We're going to finish the wall in Texas. We're going to get it done on our own without the federal government, which they're doing. And also, they have decided, since, you know, as you said, that the #1 facility for migrant children is there in El Paso, there are also 52 other shelters across the state. And Greg Abbott, the governor, again, along with a lot of the politicians, are working on a law right now, and they're facing a court battle with HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, who, of course, we all know came from California. They're saying they want to close these facilities down because they're having to burden the they have the most, you know, unaccompanied minors, and they're not being dispersed across the country, so they're being hit unduly with added expenditures that they have to take care of these kids. So they're working on, and they have already filed the paperwork, they're going to close 52 of these shelters, which is going to put the Biden administration in yet another pickle. So what are they doing about this? I mean, you see local lawmakers trying their best to get this out there and say, look, you know, we're drowning. Can you please help us?
You know, and a lot of people are saying, you know, well, these people, you know, why is it all the children? Why are they separated? You know, and one thing they don't think about, number one, if you and I, Kimberly, if we were in Mexico, we'd be right now saying, the heck with doing any TV, radio, or whatever, let's get the hell out of here, you know. Yeah. That's what most people want to do, or from the Triangle area. But the thing is, see, is that these kids coming across, the what do you call them, the cartel, not the cartel, but anyway, they're getting paid.
The human smugglers,
to bring these children over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the smugglers?
Yeah, human smugglers. Right. Absolutely. But that, I mean, this is where, and people are walking over with kids they don't even know, because they think that when they get to the, you know, checkpoint and they go through the process, that because they brought a child, I'm going to get a stay because I brought a child with me. Not my child, but I brought a child. So that's where the rationale for that is. And you've got to believe that a lot of these kids, if they're, they are upset, they're in a strange situation, they're probably crying. And I can imagine some, person that's dragging them across, or a cartel just slapping them across the face and telling them to shut up or I'm going to kill you. Think about, what is going through a child's mind if that's the case.
Yeah.
And we know that to be the case in a number of these situations.
You don't want to stay there. That's the whole thing. If you haven't been there, or maybe you went there, in the 60s or the 50s, and you said, boy, I love this country. But now with the cartel and even the governor, the president of Mexico, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I want you to tell the listeners about just some of these figures, you have listed at the top.
Yeah.
But the one that's most damning is when it talks about these 80 travelers that have disappeared along the Monterrey Nuevo Laredo highway, and this has just happened recently.
Yeah.
80 people
have
disappeared because they were driving their cars through the wrong area, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just, these are statistics that are like near the U.S.-Mexico border, southern border of California, Texas, and Arizona. There were at least five mass shootings along the border. There were 19 dead in Reynosa. There were 6 dead in Villahermosa. There were 11 dead in Salvatoria. There were 7 dead in Fresnillo and 18 dead in Valparaiso. Now these people, a lot of these people were just innocent bystanders, and the number of cartels that are vying for this part of the country. Now this particular area here, you've got the Sinaloa, the New Generation, and the Jalisco gangs. So you've got 3 of the cartels that are vying for the plaza to get the drugs across, or the human trafficking across the border. So they're vying, and that's why you're seeing this violence. And you're also seeing, as you said, that there were 80 people who were disappeared on these main highways that that ultimately lead down to Mexico City from the United States. And what is going on is the cartels have decided they're going to set up checkpoints, and they're going to institute a toll, and if you don't have the money to pay the toll, you're asked to exit your vehicle, and you're disappeared. Nobody has found these people. They found their cars empty, and then obviously if there's anything valuable inside the vehicle, the cartels are then stealing whatever that is out of these vehicles. So that's starting to create a lot more havoc inside the country of Mexico, and you've got the Mexican president blaming the Biden administration for all this, because there's a huge uptick in violence in his country. And insiders, and I have sources that are living down there, say that
And let me tell the listener, if you hear the fact that, the Mexican president is working with the new generation, that's kind of like what you hear coming out of, Democrats, It's for the children. It's the new act. It's the Green New Deal. No, don't get confused, okay? The new generation is like, it's the MS-13. You know what I'm saying?
New generation's worse than MS-13. They're worse than MS-13. And they're just they're at least as bad as ISIS, if not worse. They have no moral fortitude whatsoever. These people behead, they chainsaw people, body parts. It's not going to be graphic here, but they are horrific. They're lighting people on fire. They're having spouses watch the other one get murdered. And horrific things that you think is the only place that happens is the Middle East. But it's not, because right now you've got the cartels with the open borders that we have, and with an administration that's limp and doing nothing about any of the violence that's along the border, let alone helping the president of Mexico kind of get a handle on all of this stuff. This is very, very tough stuff. They know that border's open. They know that eventually that border is going to shut down, and they're vying for those lucrative routes to bring the drugs and the people across those borders. And you want to know one other big number? I'll give you another big number. there have been nearly 841,000 Americans that have died of drug overdoses since the Afghanistan war started. That's unbelievable number. How many people died of drug overdoses? Mostly the opioid that's coming through Mexico, and now the fentanyl that's going in. And in 2019, 70,000 people, 70,000 Americans died. Mostly younger adults, and in kids. I mean, we've heard of kids like 14 as well not overdosing on these drugs, thinking they're just taking like an Oxycontin or something. But yeah, those are staggering numbers.
Like, hey, this is a no-dose. I mean, this is going to really wake me up. You know what? I'm going to tell you two things real quick. Number one is that Trump, that was one of his primary concerns, was the deaths caused by fentanyl.
Yep.
All right, and now it's sort of like, well, okay, it's a bump in the road apparently to this administration.
Yeah.
I hope it's worse than that. And here's the other thing is that whenever these smugglers are coming across, right? A lot of them are staying in America. Like all of the marijuana things up in the mountains now, a lot of them are being run by drug cartels that belong in Mexico. Let me ask you real quick, we talk about the bullet-riddled bodies of 18 men you have, and is that Zacatecas, VAC, northern Mexico?
Yeah, that's all in northern Mexico.
Doesn't northern Mexico mean it's closer to the southern border?
Well, one would think you could conclude that, I suppose, but I don't, here in DC and the Biden administration, I'm not sure they understand that Mexico's here, actually, in the south. They might actually think that it's somewhere else, maybe closer to the Middle East. I don't know. They're doing nothing about this. And you're hearing Border Patrol agents on the ground there complaining. You're hearing CBP agents at the ports of entry complaining. And you're hearing people, local law enforcement that has to pick up the slack in these areas. And the farmers and the ranchers, where all of this stuff spills over into the U.S., they've got to, protect themselves and install, special security so that when they're sleeping at night that they're not somebody doesn't home invasion and kill them. This is a very real problem, and this is why it's important for our leaders to actually go places. Everybody said, well, Camilla didn't want to do anything, it was just like a whole press op thing and pictures. We don't want to do that like President Trump did. Well, you know what, presidents traditionally, from I don't know when there's a national disaster, they all go to the area to see it firsthand for themselves. The southern border's a disaster. It's a human disaster on top of the drugs they're pouring in, because you're seeing young girls and women being raped on this trip, this horrific trip up. It's a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. It's at our southern border, and we're doing nothing about it.
Well, and one other thing on fentanyl, I've seen a bunch of documentaries on it, things like that, and you and I have talked about it quite a bit. But I'll tell you something, listener, if you don't really know about fentanyl, but maybe you know somebody that says, oh, yeah, I take it, it's no problem. The thing is that fentanyl is just like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
And even the people making it, they admit it. They say, oh, yeah, you never know when that one dose is just going to kill you. That's all it takes. Bam.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, a lot of people get married, okay, during the summer months. June is, I think, the biggest month for brides. What about resorts in Mexico? Remember how they used to do pretty good if you couldn't afford to go to, some expensive island or something like that. You could always go down to Mexico, for the resorts down there, and it was, interesting. Beautiful waters and all this other stuff. And I think for a long time they were off guard, right? They said, we're going to stay away from that because there's a lot of money coming in.
Yeah.
And now they're not even off guard.
Yeah.
I mean, off boundary.
They used to. It used to be kind of like a gentleman's agreement, if you will, between the cartels and the government. That I understand the Americans want to do drugs, fine, move your drugs through, but you are not to hit the tourist areas because that brings revenue into our country, and that's something that's off limits. You're not allowed to go in and kidnap or kill tourists or have any of your little skirmishes and cartel violence near these areas, because that is a lifeblood for Mexico. Now, once COVID kind of hit, but really 5 years, I would say, before that, it was getting increasingly dangerous, and cartels were, slowly, the Sinaloa was slowly losing their grasp, and they were the last of the old school cartels. That really thought that, okay, well, it meant something. We're not going to go to Cancun. We're not going to go to Cabo and have a shootout. We're just not going to do that because our country needs to focus, and we need to take those tourist dollars, whether they're getting married or they're going on their honeymoon, whatever, cruise ships coming in. And people aren't doing that any longer. And the State Department has warnings, for travel inside Mexico, period. So most people are urged not to cross the border in any capacity. And this, of course, hurts the people who are trying to make a legal living inside the country. But until the cartels are at least neutered, it's not safe to travel in Mexico, because you could just be going to the little market to grab something, a soda, and you're wrong place, wrong time, and that's happening all too often. And there are a lot of Americans that have been kidnapped and killed down there. It doesn't make the news because the media refuses to put those stats up because it's not pretty. This country, it would be great if we kind of got our drug problem under control. But, that being said, the cartels are providing something that there's a huge market for, and it's a multi-billion-dollar a year market that they're in, and they're making that kind of money because there is a reason that the Americans north of the border want drugs.
All right, we're going to take a break. And also, listener, if you decide to drive your own car over the border, those United States car license tags, they stick out like a flag. Give me. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Chuck Wilder, CRN, with Kimberly Dvorak, the KD report. She is Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. And it's interesting in your report is that, and for you people out there, that are Trump lovers, and you'll say, boy, this Biden has no idea what in the heck he's doing. He's got cobwebs and blah, blah, blah. But Kimberly in her report says that when you talk to law enforcement officers who were at the border for years, and also to detail specialists, counterintelligence people say all the same thing. What you're seeing is that the Biden administration is not that they don't know what to do. It's that they've taken action to create the situation.
Yeah.
Wow.
They have. Yeah.
Like the enemy.
Yeah, they are. And speaking of that, and we know that there were some bombs dropped in Iraq and Syria over the weekend. And we're supposed to be getting out of Afghanistan. Well, we're now going to leave 600 troops behind. That obviously, I think, will grow. But there have been many that have said that, the CIA working with the Karzai administration, they have really created the worst and the very first true narco-state or country out there. And you got to think about this, that now Afghanistan is producing 90% of the world's opium, 90%, and that 50% of the GDP in Afghanistan comes from the drug trade, and they employ approximately 500,000 people in that small little country. Bravo Zulu, America, this is what you created. This is what we allowed to happen inside Afghanistan, because when it was run by the Taliban, they were very, very much so anti-drugs, and they got the drug production down to single digits, and now it's sitting at 80%. That's a huge number, and this is a new report that also just broke this morning. I just thought I would add that in here because that provides context. And if you look at what happened in Colombia during the height of the cocaine drug war, that only constituted 3% of GDP, 3%. And now we're looking at Afghanistan, and it's 50% of its GDP. So, these are all drug related, and pretty soon the entire world is going to be addicted to drugs. And that's not a pretty place to be. And also, by the way, 74 people were shot in Chicago this weekend. Yeah, just another
70,
busy weekend.
74?
74, yeah. 74 people were shot. Yeah.
They should defund the police, I say.
Yep.
Defund those police. Yes.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
They're just practicing, Kimberly.
Yeah.
No? I wouldn't be surprised. They said, no, we're just practicing, in case we run across some of those crooked policemen, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Boy, oh boy.
Very sad.
Yeah. Hey, listen, next week follows the holiday, so I think we're moving the next report to a Wednesday. Is that all right with you?
That's bueno. That's good.
Bueno. And you'll
I'm trying to learn
you'll
Spanish.
Be on the same number. You won't be in, let's see, Calabasas?
No.
Okay. I'm just checking. All right. Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. And don't forget she streams live on Facebook whenever she does this report. And then, of course, it also pops up a little bit later on, the KDReport.com.
On YouTube.
KDReport.com. And YouTube. All right. What about, what was I going to ask you? Never mind. That music, okay.
Have a good
I think
week.
it had something to do with the lottery. It was the lottery ticket.
I didn't win.
Thank you, man. All right. Kimberly Dvorak.